Okay, so our second guest speaker, Elina Michopoulou, and her presentation is an investigation of European destination management organizations' attitude toward accessible tourism. Elina, she is a senior lecturer in business management at University of Derby in UK. She is active in several research fields, including tourism, technology, and disability. She holds a master's degree in e-tourism and a PhD in accessible tourism information systems from University of Surrey. Previously, she worked for 5 years as a research officer in e-tourism research development and evaluation at the University of Surrey for the European Commission-funded e-content project, so one-stop shop for accessible tourism in Europe. Elina was involved in organizing and hosting the Olympic and Paralympic Games 2004 in Athens. So please, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me. Good morning, everyone. I will be talking about our research on European destinations. Now, I need to say from the start that this is a project that has just started, so we don't have all the information we need. So what I'm going to do today is present the rationale for what we are doing, and then we will move on to why we did what we did, how we did it, and what are our initial results. And I have to stress that it's just initial results. We still have a lot more work to do. So, why we did what we did. Now, destinations are about competitiveness, and we have lots of destinations trying to find their markets and make sure that the needs of their markets are covered. That leads to competitiveness. Now, this particular market and the disability accessibility market has very intense requirements, and the requirements vary according to type of disability or according to degree of disability, if you wish. So, but this is a very important market for lots of reasons. Some people have already mentioned the size of the market, including the aging population, so that makes it very appealing. There is the business case, whereby this is an untapped market, and we need to make sure that we can exploit this market even further, so it's the economic value of the market. Or you may look at the social responsibility of destination. So you can see it from lots of different ways, but the idea is that it's about everyone. That includes parents with prams. That includes the elderly. The second one, I took a picture from that, the second picture. I found it particularly offensive, because this is a beware sort of sign. I think whoever did that meant well, but I found it offensive. So I thought I should share a bad case example, if you wish. It also has to do with obesity, or it may have to do with temporal disability. I myself find it difficult on occasion to sit in airlines for prolonged periods of time, because I can just about fit in the seat. So access is about everyone, and when we talk about the market, that can be dodgy in itself, because what does the market entail? And for me, it includes everyone with a variety of needs, as it has been already mentioned. So, to address the disability markets and benefit from the multiplier effects, because no one is traveling on their own, everyone goes with friends, with family, so there is a multiplier effect we need to take into account, and numbers do vary. We need to look at barrier-free facilities. So infrastructure is the basic level of addressing the needs. The second level of accessibility has to do with information in itself, and quite a lot of talk has happened already over the past few days in terms of the type of information required. The third layer would be accessibility of the accessibility information, if that makes any sense. So even if you get the accessibility information, I have a hotel, the width of the door is that many centimeters. Is your website accessible? Is it mobile accessible? Do you have an app? And what's happening? So is there accessibility to the accessibility information, if that makes sense? So what destinations need to do? In fact, they need to gather information, manage the information, disseminate reliable information, and reliability is critical. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. And accurate information on accessibility on these three different levels. And this is what destinations should do. And this is what we know from the literature, for example. So the question is, if this is what they should do, what do they actually do now? So this is the rationale from the study and where we started from. So the objectives became to look at attitudes towards accessible tourism in different European levels. Then we want to investigate what are the drivers of those who want to get involved with accessible tourism. Why do they want to do it? And those who don't want to get involved, why don't they? So what are the barriers of the destinations in engaging with accessible tourism? And as a sort of side evidence, the third objective has to do with their online practices, because we realize that what you do offline is not necessarily represented to your online presence. Thinking, however, that most of people go online to find information about the destination, their online practices should reflect their intentions of engaging with accessible tourism or not. So, methodology, it was qualitative, 19 participants, 7 national, 8 regional, and 4 local demos. And this is where I say that we need to gather more data and see on a wider scale what is happening. And we did some content analysis on these interviews. So these are our initial findings. So the first section, if you wish, has to do with attitudes. So results indicated that most DMOs were aware of accessible tourism and made some efforts to get involved, with very few distinctively disinterested. So while the majority of the people that we asked were interested in, the level of involvement was different. It was interesting that on a national level, the interest was there, but on the local level, the operations of getting engaged with accessible tourism made it difficult. So, and then there was one, I have the direct quote there, that said it would not suit the profile of the destination. So one was clearly not interested and not even blinking an eye while saying it. So we have to look at the attitudes of the destinations. While the majority are positive, there is still some work to be done in terms of others. In terms of drivers, why do they want to get involved? Well, they were noting some positive changes, but really it was law and market value that were driving all of those changing, and social ethical responsibility was a secondary thought. So some of them did mention their CSR policies and practices, but it was not the main driver. It still is about the market value and legislation that is driving the changes. With regards to barriers, so why don't those destinations that do not want to get involved, or they want to get involved but haven't done so yet, what are their barriers? What are the issues? And one of the things that was coming out quite often was communication and coordination between different stakeholders. One of the key issues was reliability and accuracy of the information. So within the destination, you have all this range of stakeholders, and you have this biosystem of tourism, the tourism system, including hotels, attractions, and everyone else. So getting everyone on board was one of the key difficulties, because not everyone wanted to get involved, or not everyone could afford to get involved, let's say. The last quote there was interesting, because that was also coming quite often. While there are many good examples out there to follow, the reason we don't do what we don't do is not due to unawareness, but because of limited human resources, time, and man-hours. That seemed to be like a blanket statement from almost all destinations that we did ask. And in terms of their online practices, within website design, most were following W3C guidelines, so they were accessible websites. But the problem lied again within the information. The information was difficult to produce and validate, and that's why most of them were unwilling to publish such information, because the destination has the responsibility of providing accurate information, and if they could not make sure that it is accurate and reliable, they were not willing to provide any. The easy way out, as most of them said, was to provide links to external websites, and that was one way of dealing with it. So, if we look at the whole research, there are a few key things that come out, some recommendations, if you wish, for destinations. One of the things is to look at benchmarking and good case examples. Yesterday we looked at on a national level, like Germany. I think the next speaker will give us some more information. Flanders, regional level, or even local level, as in Paris and London, and what they do. So different destinations can look at local, national, or regional level, and look at case studies, benchmark, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. The other thing that's quite important is, if we mirror what others are doing, then we do not contribute on fragmentation, and that is very important, because then we can make sure that there is continuity in terms of information, continuity in terms of presentation of information. And then we can have a product that is holistic, and it is a quality product throughout the whole value chain, and add competitiveness to the destination. And I will leave you with this beautiful quote, and all barriers can be overcome if we have a positive attitude. And I think I'm just on time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Elina. Any question? Yes, there is a question there. So you need to use the
that you research, you analyze the websites.
Could you repeat, because of the...
Yeah, the websites of the DMO that you analyze, were they countries or regions or city websites?
Some of them were national, some of them were local. So the interviewees told us what they thought they were doing on their websites. Because actually that is a very interesting point, because what they actually mentioned was not what was actually happening on the website, although most of the websites were going through a redesign process, as they mentioned actually.
And is there the best practice that you have noticed in the DMO websites?
Well, there are some good case examples. So the German Tourist Board is doing a very good job. In terms of city level, Oslo is doing a very good job. Denmark is doing a very good job, but maybe we should have a conversation later on so I can give you some hints and tips on what to look, I guess.
Thank you.
Okay, there is another question here. Maybe just to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Antje. Today I'm here from the European Travel Commission, and my question is the study available online? Like, are you at that point yet that people can actually see the results and go a little bit more in detail?
Not yet, because it's still being done. So these are the initial results. Once we have finished with data collection, then we can do that, yeah.
Okay, perfect. And will it be available to everyone, or will we need to contact you?
You can contact me and then I can disseminate.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. But that was a good presentation.
Okay.
Okay. So there is a question in the back. Again, if you may introduce yourself.
My name is Michael Maynard. I'm working for the Quebec government. I would like just to know whether, as far as websites are concerned, whether do you have in Europe any kind of standards, accessibility standards for websites or and other material? We have free standards in Quebec, and it greatly improved the website accessibility. So I don't know whether anything comparable exists in Europe.
If we're looking at website design as such, W3C guidelines are the most often referred to guidelines. If we're looking at the type of information required, there was this project that was mentioned, the OSATE project, that developed 3 levels of information. And these can be taken on by different providers to look at the trust within the levels of information. So level 1 is more contained, level 2 and level 3, which is validated by some sort of auditor.
Maybe I will precise my question. When we talk about national or regional bodies, which are public bodies, are they obliged to follow any kind of standards as far as their websites are concerned? Because it's public money. Still, if you have a website of a national agency, tourist agency, let's say, it's funded by public money, so it should be maybe accessible for all citizens.
I can only assume so, but I can include that question in the research. Thank you.
There is another question right there.
Marcus Weisen, just some information about web accessibility in Europe. Generally speaking, it's public policy from the European Commission that publicly funded websites meet web content accessibility guidelines generation 1, level 2. However, studies that were made in 2005 or so by the Disability Rights Commission in the UK showed, for example, that out of 1,000 public sector websites, maybe only 2 or 3% met these web content accessibility guidelines. However, there are also serious issues with web content accessibility guidelines in as much as they don't take all situations into account and tend to emphasize the needs of blind people, perhaps over people with dyslexia and so on. Then there are, of course, generation 2, which is more of a conceptual tool, and it has no means for reviewing and monitoring levels of implementation because it's more process-based. I would expect that levels of web accessibility in Europe and Canada or the United States are relatively similar. Although we see variations in museums where French museums perform far worse than, for example, museums in Britain, because one goes for very jazzy, exciting visual look and one is less interested in general usability standards.
Okay. Thank you. So now we're going to, well, thank you very much.